Hello, and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. I moved my upload schedule around a lot this month, and I didn't end up with anything in particular planned in today's slot. So here's some footage I didn't end up using in August. I'll toss to Facecam Jenna from back in August to explain the footage, then we'll come back and chat, okay? Okay. So if you know me, and you probably do a bit by now if you've been watching this channel, I love month-long art challenges, and August is Smogust, or Smaugust. I'm not quite sure how that's intended to be pronounced. Basically, every day in the month of August there is a dragon-related prompt, or you just freestyle it and do a dragon every day for August. Obviously, it is named for Tolkien's dragon Smaug, but it's for August, so hence my confusion. Smogust or Smaugust? I'm not sure. Anyway, one of the dragons I decided to actually film my process instead of just sketching on the couch, and I'm using that Hahnemühle sketchbook from the Jazzy Art Box, and I'm going to do a graphite sketch, portrait, drawing, illustration, words of a Chinese water dragon in the Nostalgie sketchbook. I chose to do a Chinese water dragon for two reasons. The first being that I was getting bored with the cartoony fantasy character dragons I was drawing, and the second was that I wanted to actually reference something without doing a direct study of someone else's art. The logical answer, of course, was to use photos of an actual reptile, and this particular species of lizard is actually called a dragon, so that's nice and convenient. I'm using Staedtler Mars Lumograph graphite drawing pencils. The paper, as mentioned, is the Hahnemühle Nostalgie sketchbook, and at the end I seal the graphite in place with a wash of watercolor from my green and yellow Caron Brushmarker Pro watercolor brush pens. I honestly don't really have much to say about this piece or the process other than it was good practice, and the paper handled it nicely. This was the first piece I did in the sketchbook. I've used it a lot since, mostly with alcohol inks. The video I did of the toucan for the Amazon rainforest discussion was also in this book, and you'll be seeing the rest of what I've done in it so far as part of my Linktober walkthrough later this week. It holds up to everything I've put in it beautifully, and blending alcohol ink on it is just like working with my 110-pound cardstock. Inks actually do ghost through to the other side of the page. Spots of heavy layering and blending will bleed a little onto the next page, so if you're doing an intricate piece, put a guard sheet in between. I've tested on one page, and it does handle gesso just fine, so that's an option for making the opposite side of inked pages usable again. Since the cover is so nice and thick and sturdy, simply pinching it closed with a bulldog clip once the gesso was dry flattened the gessoed page out nicely. Now, on with the topic I've probably hinted at in the video title. I'd like to chat about my first and only restaurant job and why I never applied for a serving job again. By the way, if you're new here, please do subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. Make sure it's filled in for all notifications or you'll only get them occasionally. I upload every Tuesday and Thursday at minimum, and some weeks I have bonus videos. You're guaranteed a bonus on the third Friday of every month, as that's when we members of the Art Addicts Alliance upload. You can check out the description on my recent Art Addicts Alliance video for more information on that collaboration group if you want in. We've got a few spaces open, and we welcome guests to participate on a month-to-month basis as well. And as always, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment down below. I love reading your comments. I do reply to everyone, so let's have a conversation. Today, since I'm going to be talking about my one and only serving job, why not tell me about your first job, your worst job, or any serving stories you have to share? So this serving job wasn't my first job, but it was one of my first. I volunteered a lot as a kid and a teen in the school system, as a junior lifeguard, and with a museum close to where I grew up. I babysat a handful of times, but that was never really my thing. I probably took care of neighbors' pets while they were away more times than I babysat for non-relatives. When I was 15, I started working for the school district every July as a recreation leader and classroom assistant in the grade 1 to 3 level summer school programs. In grade 12, Mom pushed me to get a real job in an area that she didn't have influence in. She's a teacher. So I went out and got hired seasonally at a clothing store in the local mall, but that didn't last. The manager hired 3 part-timers for 2 positions and dropped the ball training me. My coworkers got credit for all my sales because I didn't have a user ID to log into the registers. I was never given any sort of heads up about new stock or new displays. No one got around to getting me a locker in the back room. I decided to quit before they could let me go. I ended up working in a similar clothing store less than 2 years later and ended up being team leader and key holder, so I know it wasn't me. But anyway, Christmas season, grade 12 needed a job. The father of some boys my mom and I tutored out of our home owned a local restaurant, and he hired me on the spot as soon as Mom mentioned that I was looking. At first, it seemed like a great idea. I still have no idea how I managed to stay there for 6 months, and I'm so glad graduating high school and moving on to a university in a different city provided the best excuse to quit peacefully. I don't think anybody from my hometown who isn't a relative watches my videos, and I have no idea if the same family still owns that restaurant or if it's even still a business under the same name, but just in case, I'm not going to name the place or mention any real names. I'll call the owner Boss, the main chef will simply be Chef, and I'll make up alternate first names for anyone else I need to mention. So this place was a Greek-Italian fusion sort of place, lots of Greek dishes, only Greek desserts. All the chefs were fresh off the boat, Greek men, but the place also served pizza and a smattering of typical Canadian restaurant fare. All of the other kitchen staff, the dishwashers, and the delivery boys were male relatives of the owner. Not Greek, by the way, Indian. Don't ask, because I don't know. And all of us serving staff, fair-haired, fair-skinned, chesty ladies who fit into a dress size 8 or smaller. I'm aware I don't completely fit that description anymore, but keep in mind I was a teenager and I had blonde highlights. I'm not saying he openly discriminated in his hiring, but that's what I observed during my half-year working there, and there was a high turnover among the serving staff. When I left, there was only one other server there who had been there when I started. We'll call her Cece. Nice woman once she's done asserting her dominance. The restaurant didn't have a bar. It had a fridge in the server area, which was also the salad prep station. We servers made all the salads, packaged all the dressings and sauces for takeout and delivery orders, took all the phone orders, prepared all drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and cleaned everything that wasn't within the limits of the kitchen, and, all that on top of the regular serving and bussing duties you would expect a server to do in a small restaurant. The fountain pop machine, soda for my American friends, was constantly breaking down, in which case we would use the 2-liter bottles of pop that were available to be ordered with takeout. If you ordered Coke or Pepsi, we didn't ask if one or the other brand was okay instead. We just brought out whichever cola we had on hand. Sometimes it actually was Coke or Pepsi. Sometimes it was the house brand at the grocery store down the street. Our wine offering was a red and white each of a Costco brand boxed wine, and everything else was just an assortment of whatever bottles Boss picked up on his last liquor store run. Same for the beer. If you didn't want wine, beer, pop, or milk, the only other option left was water, and you better believe it came from the tap. Want ice with that? Oh boy. We had a monstrous ice machine in what was once the second bathroom that produced ice in large sheets. We servers would collect chunks of these ice sheets in buckets, bring it to our salad prep area, dump it in the sink that was also feeding water through the pop fountain machine, and crush it with a meat tenderizer. The walk-in cooler was always a mess. Boxes of produce were kept directly on the floor, never closed over. Sauce storage buckets were so old the lids didn't fit properly, which did result in one of my fellow servers finishing the rest of her shift covered in plum sauce. No, she wasn't soldering through it. Boss wouldn't let her leave. The light in the cooler only stayed on while the door was open. The door release button on the inside was constantly falling off, which meant if you got shut in, you had to find the button on the floor, or on a shelf, or in a box in complete darkness, and get it back in place on the door. One of the delivery drivers, we'll call him Jay, had a crush on me. Apparently, 21-year-old delivery boys flirting with 18-year-old server girls still goes by playground rules. He thought it was funny to shut me in the cooler. I became very good at getting that button to work in the dark. The head chef was a man in his mid-50s at least, with a very thick Greek accent and a very short fuse. If he was yelling at us from within the kitchen, we learned to listen for 2 keywords and ignore everything else. If he came out of the kitchen, then it was time to figure out what else he wanted. If he yelled for coffee, he wanted one right now, hot as possible, black. If he yelled for tzatziki, he wanted takeout order, sauces, salads, or both for whichever ticket he was waving. Sometimes, if things slowed down, he started arguing with his fellow chefs. Other times, he tried flirting with the servers. He liked one girl in particular, coincidentally the one who worked a shift covered in plum sauce. Let's call her Lee. I'll never forget the evening we all heard him telling Lee, and I quote, "If I were a younger man, I'd put you in the back of my car, and no one would ever see you again." Boss was nice enough, but he figured his servers doubled as babysitters. Anytime his wife had to be somewhere else, we suddenly had 3 children under 10 running around the staff areas, installing flash games on the useless computer beside the register that was only used to look up delivery directions, and hoarding all the crayons that we had to hand out for customers. Guess who had to drop everything and fix the computer when the flash games came with viruses? Yep, me. Our restaurant had no formal dress code for serving staff, nor did boss care if we worked for competing second jobs. One of my fellow servers was a very attractive 20-something natural blonde with amazing legs who worked a second job at the local sports bar after getting off work at our place. Needless to say, she dressed for the sports bar, and consequently got all sorts of special requests and all the tips. She got tips from tables that weren't hers. Boss would do whatever was needed to keep things running on a busy night, which is admirable. This included cashing out orders, washing dishes, driving delivery as needed, and even hopping in the kitchen to lend a hand to the chefs. The thing is, he never washed his hands between tasks, and he drank at least 5 glasses of that boxed red wine every night. The second floor of the building housed a dance studio, and Monday nights were tap class. He really didn't like Mondays, and he didn't think the property manager should have allowed a dance studio to set up above a restaurant and a convenience store, which was next door, and he made sure everyone was well aware of these opinions. I ended up taking my adult ballet class with the same studio in their new building years later, and had a good laugh about it with the studio staff because they remembered, and apparently they had quite a few complaints from him over the years. Food being sent back by customers wasn't uncommon. Chef frequently didn't understand what had been ordered and blamed the server's handwriting, but I had to explain to him what a Hawaiian pizza was. A chef in a restaurant that serves North American-style pizza, with many years under his belt at the same establishment, should know what goes on a Hawaiian pizza. Especially in Canada. We invented that one. But there are 2 orders that stick out in my mind as major WTF moments. One time, a table ordered a chicken dish, and when the customer bit into the chicken, it was so spoiled it was black. Another time, a table refused to pay, rightfully so, and ended up walking out when boss wouldn't concede. Their reason? Well, there was a metal shard embedded in the crust of their pizza. To this day, I have no idea in the world how that one happened, but it did. Chef played dumb, boss didn't want to take it off the customer's bill. We got paid every second week by handwritten check. I was never asked to provide my social insurance number or fill out any tax forms, and I can't remember if I ever got a T4 tax slip from that job. I wouldn't be surprised if all of us servers were being paid under the table, and he got away with the small number of legitimate employees between his chefs and delivery boys because the business was so small. My stepdad collected my last check after I quit, and I've never been back. What's your worst job story? Have you ever worked in a restaurant? Let's talk about bosses past in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye, guys.